So I got some very interesting feedback from the last video that I did, Players Union. You know, some people agree with me 100% and some people had something else to say. Some people did not want to put themselves out there in the public because this is a really sensitive issue. And believe me, owners do not like unions. Once you start talking about unions, they're like, nah. A lot of owners and these different entities do not like all these unions. So what I'm talking about right here is not something that's popular, especially to the ones who are giving out the money or some of the compensation or the benefits that the people are demanding for. They don't like it. They don't like unions. So some people did not want to expose themselves out there. Okay, so let's dive into some of the comments or some of the questions that people had. Number one, let's talk about some people are like, hey, man, a lot of unions are failing in the world. What are you talking about? I actually agree with you. A lot of unions are failing in the world. We're going to get to that. All right. And then somebody else asked me this question. You were talking about, a lot of these federations or management, people in management would sit at the table and just smile and not understand not understand their values. What makes you think it's going to be different if you have players out there or a representative sit at the table? I am sure something like that could happen. And that's actually a very good question. You know what I mean? It still could be the same thing. Somebody sitting at the big boys table and then just smiling, not doing anything to help the players. That's also a possibility. All right. So let's start off with the first question, why unions are failing. I think let's address that first. Well, a lot of unions are failing, I would say, because they're very different from sports unions. With the global market enables employers to shift jobs to anywhere in the world right now. The way things work is, your union demands for a whole lot right now. They could just shift that job and take it to another country, to a lower wage country out there. It's easy as that nowadays. And if they're not going to take it to another country, they could just shift it to another region. You understand what I'm saying? And that's also a problem for a lot of unions. Or if they're not going to do that, guess what? They'll just come out with some new technology to replace you guys. And they'll just downsize the workers. As easy as that. And let's not even talk about tech jobs. Because guess what? I need customer service. I just get some people from India to do that for me. You keep coming here with your unions and blah, blah, blah. It's just going to fail. And it is failing. It is failing. I agree 100%. But the difference here, we talking about players. Players are very high skilled and the skills take a very long time to develop. Most of the investment, their investment comes from the individual foregoing a lot of different opportunities just to hone their skills in whatever field that they're in, whatever sport that they're in. It takes a long time. And while doing so, they incur a really high risk. And when I say it's a high risk because very few people succeed. I mean, just imagine how many people make it into the NBA. Just imagine how many people actually make it to play for the national team. The national team probably takes about 12 to 15 people. And, that team could represent a group of like 60 million people, meaning a country, 60 million people. Or let's just talk about a team in a city or just whatever. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. It's a very small group that actually makes it. And in order for you to make it, you have to be the best of the best. And then that's when, let's take it back to the union side. It's not that easy to replace them like the way you can replace workers with technology and all that. It's not that easy. It's not like there's just a reserve guard just standing there or sitting there just waiting for you to hire them after, these players go on strike or do whatever. So this is why you look around the world and you're seeing sports unions actually succeeding or flourishing while some of the other unions are not. That's the reason. Highly skilled individuals or workers or players going against, you can always get another person to work the phones, customer service or something like that. But you're not going to get another Stephen Curry, not that easy. No. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, okay. Now, let's talk a little bit more about unions. Unions depend upon their ability to organize workers / players, if we're talking about players, to understand or to perceive that a common good, that a common good can be achieved by negotiating their wages or their benefits together. That's what unions do. So, okay, here we have players in Africa. Right. And, I kind of lost people yesterday. I was saying a whole lot of stuff, and I understand that sometimes my brain just works and it flies, and I'm just, that's why I call this a rant. It's not like I sit down and that's the problem. I got to figure out a better way. Maybe I'll start doing that. But right now it just flies. It goes all over the place. Again, I'm doing it. Let's get back to it. So this is where every team, every league, every federation is actually a part of BAL or Afro Basket. They can't exist without what's happening down here. You can't have, African champion without all the other, teams participating. So all I'm saying is, if all these players come together and negotiate for better conditions or better wages, guess what's going to happen? Because there's a lot of money being made up there. I don't know exactly how much, because there's no transparency out there. So some of that money, and nobody would do all that. Nobody will build arenas. Nobody would get all those teams, fly them to whatever country, blah, 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 and blah, 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 if they're not making money. So we could say some of that money could be negotiated to also, help some of those teams that actually do not make it to the bigger stage. So the working conditions or the wages could be a little better, because you have teams right now that make it all the way to BAL. They don't even have basketball courts. They don't have a place to go train. I'm talking about all they do is play outside, hard cement and all that, and expect to go compete with certain teams that come from federations that are doing really well. And they have the facilities and everything. So yeah, you probably have about 4 or 5 national teams, or even, club champions that actually practice at really good facilities. Everybody else, they just play outside, and they're just in shock every time they go to all these great facilities to actually play for the championship. So what I'm saying is, if players come together and actually negotiate some of that money to actually facilitate or help some of the other teams, help some of the players, maximize that limited time that they have. We talked about it, you know what I mean? They're taking a really high risk. They have a limited window to actually showcase his skill. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not only talking about money. I'm talking about the conditions. And I understand that. Okay, so the second question that I wanted to address was, what if a player sits at the table and then they just smile? There's a difference there. Players are very different. And I understand this still can happen. This is not guaranteed. But I am sure you take a player coming from a country that has nothing, they understand what they're going through. They understand their issues. It is very clear to them what they want. Some of them will not say money, but yes, they do want that basketball court. It's the conditions. Some of these players travel to go compete, and they sleep in little motels. Heck, motels are great. I've heard stories. A team sleeping at a whorehouse before going to play a game. There's some crazy stories out there. The conditions are just not the same. Hence, you've seen, like Angola, their federation is doing pretty good, or was doing pretty good. I'm not sure right now. I know that we're doing pretty good. How many times have they won AfroBasket? Tunisia, back to back. Go to their league. Really great. Egypt, doing really great. Look at their federation. Look at their league. Doing great. Facilities and all that. And how much money is FIBA making? Imagine if Uganda were having issues. I don't want to jump into that. Let's say they had great facilities and all that. Imagine what would happen from that country. How many players? How great would they be? Unions, people, these players need to come together. The common good. And when I say common, majority of the players in Africa do not have the facilities, do not get paid. And they end up, playing for the national team or playing for the clubs. And then after that is just, I don't know, whatever weird job that they can get. That's what they have. This is what I'm talking about. It's not just the wages. It's not just at the low level, you hold your federation hostage. I'm talking about the FIBAs, the BAL. They will not exist. They will not exist if you are not participating. And I'm not saying for you to go on some kind of strike. No, I'm not asking you to go on some kind of strike. I am calling for a players' union so we can attain some common good, working conditions. Maybe wages, stuff like that. That's what I'm calling for. I don't know if I made my point, but I am looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So please, your comments, your thoughts, I want to hear them.